Welcome to this segment of Advanced Windshield Repair Training. Today we're going to learn how to do long crack repair on this vehicle here for our customers. This is an example of a long crack in a windshield. Today this is the car that we're going to repair. Normally, if there's no impact point and it's caused from stress or twist damage, there is very little likelihood that you're going to have a very high rate of success working on this piece of glass. So we're going to go ahead and get started here. The first thing that you want to do is make sure that you have cleaned your surface area. To do that, we don't want to be using any liquids or sprays, water of any kind. We want to keep our crack free of contamination. So what we're going to use is a dry, lint-free cloth just to wipe the area of the repair down, just like this. If there's any water or contamination inside the brake, we need to wait until that water evaporates before we resume the work. Also be able to pay very close attention towards this, where the brake hits the edge of the glass. The opening is wider where the impact happens. So there's going to be a very high likelihood of dirt and contamination, especially if the crack's old. Be aware of what kind of work, what kind of damage you're going to be working on before you start. The next thing I want to do is be ready to protect my repair from UV damage. So I'm actually going to get my UV shields out right now, so I don't have to worry about pulling them out later. Pretty good coverage of the whole area. Now that that's ready to do is I'm just going to take these suction cups and I'm going to pull them up like this. So when I'm ready for these UV shields, they'll be ready to go. The next thing I'm going to do is get the rest of the crack ready for the repair. What I'm going to use are these crack expanders. How that's going to happen is we're going to line these expanders right up directly on the crack, and we're just going to apply just enough pressure to slightly increase the opening of the crack. What that's going to do is take the crack from this tightened space to actually opening up the surface of the brake a little bit. It'll help us create the bleed that we're looking for. Now that the windshield damage is ready for us to work on, we need to gain access to the damaged area. Now, you might be familiar and know how to use a drill in the windshield. What we're going to be doing is slightly different here. If you look closely, normally when we're drilling into a rock chip, we're going to be drilling slightly down into the impact point. In this scenario, we're going to be looking at the length of the crack, and if the crack were ending here, I'm going to drill at an angle like this into the brake. This is going to help control most of the pressure that I feel and forcing it down the length of the crack. So we're going to see how that happens as I drill the windshield. We're now going to drill the windshield. It's important to understand where you're standing in position to the crack. If the crack is cracking this way, I don't want to position myself to where I have strength in my body and I'm drilling towards myself along with the crack. If the crack were coming down from the top of the windshield, I would want to get some leverage here to be able to get up. And if I am drilling down, I want to make sure that I can get over that crack to get some leverage this way. I don't want to be drilling like this. I want to be drilling like this. Okay? So I'm going to go ahead and start this. We're going to go ahead and go about a 1/4 of an inch from the end of the brake in. I'm going to hold it, and I'm going to make sure you're lined up right in alignment with the crack. and you're going to hit it and create a little bit of a notch. Be very careful not to skip across the windshield. At this point, just get that groove. Make sure it's where you want it to be, and then proceed to drill at an angle. Okay, now that we've prepped our surface area, we've created access to the damage, now we're just going to start fixing this like we normally would any other repair. We're going to get out our Daytona bridge, drop down the thread about 1.5 turns. To give it enough space, maybe a little bit more to where you can see about 2 threads, and place the resin directly into the injector cylinder. Take your gasket, replace it directly into the cylinder there. We'll also then take our mirror, we'll take a mirror, line it up directly over the hole we drilled, so we know we're exactly where we want to be when we line this up. So push the resin up into the seal, pull back slightly to create surface tension, flip it over and line ourselves up. So we want the injector to be directly over the hole that we drilled. Go ahead and suction down onto the glass. You never want to put the suction cup directly over the crack. That is actually going to let the air seep into the suction cup and you will never get purchase on the glass. So make sure that you are only applying the suction cup against just undamaged glass. Take the cylinder, turn it right down to the glass, tighten the stabilizer legs to where they're just touching. Make sure you're exactly where you want to be. And then I like to pull a little bit of a vacuum right here just to kind of get the air starting to flow out, and then repressurize, push it back in just till we have a little bit of pressure. And then I'm going to actually now immediately cover up my damage with my UV shield here. We want to protect this from getting pre-cured. So, and that's what we're going to do. We're going to let that sit there for just a minute until we start to get a little bit of a bleed. We talked about waiting for a bleed to happen. What that is when the resin starts to pressurize inside the brake and it hits a point where the resin can't flow any further down the brake, but that pressure still wants to escape. It'll start to escape out of the surface of the crack, and the resin will start to congeal into little droplets along the surface edge of the crack. That's how you know when a bleed's been created. When you have that, it's the perfect time to continue to the next step, which we're going to do now. Alright, now that we have a bleed, we're going to fill this injector just like we did the one previously, but we're going to do it outside of the base. We actually probably need a little bit more resin in here. Let's make sure we have about full 2 turns there to make sure we have enough resin in here to get this length of this crack. Okay. Place my white gasket back into the seal. Push the resin up into the seal. Let's go ahead and remove our UV shielding right here, and make sure we have the right surface tension on the injector, and then we're going to set it down right here, and just by turning this in and running it down along the brake like this, it works like a magic eraser. Sometimes you'll hit air pockets that give you problems. Move back and forth to loosen the air up. And you can see how that we just continue to progress right down the brake. Make sure that you don't put too much surface pressure on the surface of the glass. You'll tighten it in a way that will make the air want to come flow back into the brake. Nice, slow, even pressure as you glide the injector along the crack. Continue to turn the resin in from the pin so you don't lose pressure. Now you'll notice along the end of this here, this is a really big brake with a large opening at the base of the crack here. So we're gonna actually start to see a little bit of dirt that starts to build up inside there. But we just filled that whole crack. We've now filled the entire length of the brake, but we have some dripping resin here. We want to make sure we wipe it up. Be careful not to put a lot of pressure on the surface of the glass, but also don't run your rag over the crack itself. In case there's any uncured resin inside the brake, we don't want the rag to sop it up inside and create air pockets inside the brake. Now we're just going to let the sun sit here and cure it. Now if I'm inside a bay, this is where I would use my UV lamp to cure this in sections. Right now we're going to let this go ahead and sit for about 3 to 5 minutes to make sure that we have a really strong cure in there. About 1 to 2 minutes per section when you're using the light. Alright, you can see that we've removed our crack expanders, we've removed our UV shields. I'm going to remove this last bridge right now. We're going to go ahead now and put our pit filler along do our surface repair along the entire length of the brake. So we're going to take our pit fill, and we're going to light bead, you can still see your crack along the length, and take your cure strips and lay them down as you go. This will make a big difference as you're trying to remove this excess after. I'm going to grab a few of these out just so I'm ready. Right. Now that our resin is cured for 1 to 2 minutes in the sun or in segments with the light like we discussed, we're ready to remove the excess resin. We're going to do that by peeling lightly up on all our cure tabs. Set those down. We're going to make long fluid strokes across the resin to remove all the excess. If you want to cut it down a little bit just to get down to where the line of the crack is, that can maybe save you a little bit of time, but really you just kind of have to start to shave this stuff away. Alright, now that we've removed all the excess pit filler, we're going to go ahead and clean up this window. Using your towel, just go ahead and brush aside all of this excess resin here until we get it all wiped off. Just go ahead and take a cleaner, spray down. Sometimes if you have a little bit excess resin, I'll go ahead and with the grain of the crack, just go ahead and scratch away maybe what might be any residual resin there, just to make sure that's nice and smooth. Got a good clean fill on that. Okay, go ahead and, oh, that's fine, isn't it?